Hi, my name is Ben Owens, and this is part 2 of a series on a practical guide for teaching distance learning via Tandberg. In this presentation, I'm just going to introduce some terminology and things that you'll find in the Tandberg classroom. This is part 2 of 8. So when working with Tandberg, the classroom that you are in, the one that you are teaching in, is commonly referred to as the near end, and the classroom that you are being broadcast to is called the far end. Throughout this presentation, I may also refer to them as the home class and the away class. So here is a basic setup for the Tandberg classrooms. Let's suppose that this is the near end class. This is the home class. Notice that what it'll have is, of course, you have 4 screens, the back TVs and the front TVs, and then you have 2 cameras, one here that's facing the students and one here that's facing you, or it could be pointed at the whiteboard, etc., and we'll talk about later how to control that. And then you have several options up at the front of things that you can use for content, that is, things that you can put onto the screens. First of all, you have a computer, which you can project onto the screen, so you can use PowerPoint or whatever you're using online, TED Talks or whatever. You also have a visualizer or an Elmo, a document camera, however you want to say it, that you can use to work out problems or to show examples, etc. There's also a VCR typically up here, or a DVD player or whatever, although I usually or rarely use that. It is another option. Now, in the away class, you have all of this as well, but typically you won't be using those unless you have the students, you want to see something they're working on or whatever. But anyhow, that is the Tandberg classroom. And so throughout these videos, we'll be talking about how these work and how to control each of these elements and some of the common problems that you might run into. So what are the options that you have for the screens? That is, what are the source options that you can have on the screens? The first one is the instructor camera, and that is the camera that's located at the back of the near end classroom. And typically what it'll be is it'll simply be projected on you wherever you are typically. You'll have it just projected there, and that will put it onto a screen, which of course means that it'll also be on the screen in the away classroom or on the far end. There's also the student camera, which you can have projecting the students in your classroom on the far end. This is a great camera to use when you're having in-class discussions so that the students on the far end can see the entire class. And of course, when you are connected with a class on the far end, you also have on one of your screens the camera that's pointed at the students there. There's also the document camera that you can use, and then of course the computer and the video or DVD. These are the different options that you have to put on the screens in both the home and the away classes. Now typically what we call that instructor camera is the main camera. And so when you see main camera in the different things in Tandberg, that's what it means. It's the camera that's on the instructor. Now this camera may be pointed at the instructor, or it could be pointed, say, at the whiteboard. You can move it around, and we'll talk in a different video about how to move the camera around as you see fit. But it's simply the camera that's at the back, and typically it's the one that's going to be showing you. The other camera, or the other source, I should say, is what is called the secondary camera. Now this is a little bit confusing because there are 2 things that are typically referred to as secondary camera in the Tandberg system. The first one is the student camera on the home end, that is the camera that's showing the students in the classroom that you're in the near end classroom. But the document camera, or the visualizer, can also be, or will also be, referred to as the secondary camera. So we'll talk about more about that later on, but there's those 2 things that can be referred to as the secondary camera in the Tandberg system. Now there are 2 main ways of controlling the system, and I'll be talking about which things I like to use with each of these. There is the control panel, which is right here, and for some actions I like to use the control panel because I think it's easier. And then there's the remote. Of course, this can also control most of the system as well. You can really do pretty much anything you want with either of these options. And so part of it is just realizing which one you prefer. As we go throughout these presentations, I'll tell you what I prefer to use each of these for. There are certain things that I think are easier using the control panel for, and certain things that I actually like to use the remote for. So anyway. So my goal in these series is to make the classroom experience interesting and engaging and personal for both the away and the home class. I think that sometimes you can actually make things a little impersonal for the students that you're actually with by trying too hard to make things engaging for the class on the far end. So you have to be careful of that. You don't want to forget about the students that you're actually with. And of course, the real difficulty is to make the experience engaging for the students that are on the far end. And so we'll be talking about different ways of doing that and what I found to be really helpful. I hope that through these presentations, I can share my experiences and basically help you to be confident starting out, and especially making the distance education more engaging and meaningful for the students, and of course more rewarding for you as the instructor. So anyway, I hope you watch the rest of these videos and you find them very helpful. Thanks for watching.